Colonel Richard Brennan was mid-sentence, telling the Pentagon briefing room why women couldn't handle SEAL operations, when the door opened. A woman walked in, 5 feet 6 inches, civilian clothes, unremarkable except for the trident pin on her jacket. The Navy SEAL insignia that less than 3,000 people in history had earned. "She's an imposter," Brennan laughed, pointing at her. "Nice try, sweetheart, but stolen valor is a federal crime." "Security." The woman calmly placed a folder on the table. "Colonel Brennan, I'm Dr. Sarah Chun. 3 years ago, your son was in my SEAL unit when we got ambushed in Syria." The room went dead silent. "That's impossible. Women can't. Your son stepped on an IED. Lost both legs below the knee. I carried him 4 miles through ISIS territory while engaging 12 hostiles." She pulled out a photo. Brennan's son, alive, standing on prosthetics, with Sarah in full combat gear beside him. "He called me an imposter too, right until I saved his life." The Secretary of Defense stood up. "Gentlemen, meet Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chun, call sign Ghost. The first woman to not only pass SEAL training but to serve 3 combat deployments with Team 6, classified until today." Brennan's face went white as Sarah added, "Your son sends his regards. He wanted to be here, but he's teaching at Coronado now, training the next generation. He tells every class about the imposter who refused to leave him behind." What happened next would shatter every assumption about women in special operations forever. Get ready for the most classified story ever declassified. Subscribe to never miss these incredible true revelations. Thumbs up, smash that like if you believe warriors come in all forms. Speech balloon comment. Do you think you know what makes a SEAL? Bell, ring the bell. This story will change everything you thought you knew. The Pentagon Briefing Room, Washington, D.C., March 15, 2023. The Joint Chiefs were assembled for a classified briefing on expanding special operations recruitment. Colonel Richard Brennan, a Vietnam veteran with 40 years of military service, was presenting his report on why current standards should remain unchanged. "Gentlemen," Brennan was saying, his voice carrying the authority of decades, "the push to include women in special operations is politically motivated nonsense. The physical demands, the mental stress, the brutal reality of close combat, these aren't areas where social experiments belong. Navy SEALs represent the tip of the spear. We can't compromise that for diversity quotas." Several generals nodded in agreement. The data on his slides showed failure rates, physical standards, combat effectiveness metrics, all supporting his argument. That's when she walked into Dr. Sarah Chun entered quietly, her civilian attire, jeans, simple blouse, leather jacket, standing out among the uniforms. But it wasn't her clothes that drew attention. It was the gold trident pin on her jacket, catching the light like a challenge. "Excuse me, miss," General Morrison interrupted. "This is a classified briefing." "You need to. I was invited," Sarah said calmly, producing her credentials. "By the Secretary of Defense." Brennan studied the pin with disdain. "Ma'am, I don't know where you bought that trident, but wearing it is stolen valor. My nephew is a SEAL. I know every woman who's attempted the program." "They all rang out." "Did they?" Sarah asked, taking a seat uninvited. "Security," Brennan called, but Secretary of Defense James Crawford raised his hand. "She stays," Crawford said simply. "Continue your presentation, Colonel." Brennan, clearly irritated, returned to his slides. "As I was saying, the casualty rate for women in combat trials is 3 times higher. They lack the upper body strength for casualty carries, the bone density for sustained operations, the aggression for close-quarters combat." "Fascinating," Sarah interrupted. "Tell me, Colonel, what's the maximum distance you've carried a wounded teammate under fire?" "Excuse me." "Simple question. Your research seems thorough. Surely you have personal experience to back these claims." Brennan's jaw tightened. "Young lady, I've served for miles." Sarah cut him off. "That's my record. Your son probably told you, though he might have been unconscious for most of it." The room froze. Brennan's face went from red to white in seconds. "My son died in. Your son is very much alive, teaching BUD/S Phase 2 at Coronado. Lost both legs below the knee on May 15, 2020, during Operation Sandstorm in Syria. IED triggered during a raid on an ISIS command center." Sarah pulled out her phone, showing a recent photo. Talked to him yesterday. He's training a promising class. 26 candidates, left out of 80. The photo showed Lieutenant Michael Brennan standing on advanced prosthetics, smiling beside a pool with SEAL candidates doing water exercises. How do you? Brennan stammered. Because I was there, Sarah said simply. I was his commanding officer. The Secretary of Defense stood. Gentlemen, meet Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chun, Navy SEAL, Team 6, callsign Ghost. The first woman to successfully complete BUD/S, SQT, and serve in active SEAL operations. Her existence has been classified at the highest levels for the past 7 years. The room erupted in disbelief. That's impossible. Admiral Jackson protested. I oversee naval special warfare. I would know. No, Admiral, you wouldn't, Crawford corrected. Project Valkyrie was authorized by the previous administration, eyes only for 3 people. Sarah was selected from Marine Force Recon, already combat proven. She went through BUD/S Class 298 under the name Sam Chin, listed as male in all documentation. Sarah stood, removing her jacket to reveal scars covering her arms, burns, bullet wounds, surgical incisions. Each one a story of survival. Your son called me an imposter too, she told Brennan. Right up until the moment his femoral artery was severed by shrapnel, and I clamped it with my bare hands while engaging enemy fighters. She walked to the presentation screen, taking control of the laptop. May I? New slides appeared, classified operation footage, helmet cam recordings, after-action reports with heavy redactions. Operation Sandstorm. 12-man SEAL element inserted to eliminate ISIS leadership manufacturing chemical weapons. I was team leader, Michael was my communications specialist. The footage showed a dusty compound in Syria. Intel was wrong. Instead of 20 fighters, we faced 60. Plus an IED factory we didn't know about. The helmet cam footage was brutal. Explosions, gunfire, chaos. Then a massive blast that sent the camera tumbling. When it stabilized, it showed a Marine's legs, or what was left of them. Michael triggered a secondary device during our withdrawal, Sarah narrated clinically. Both legs amputated instantly. Femoral artery on the right side severed. Maybe 3 minutes to live without intervention. The footage showed hands, small hands, applying tourniquets with impossible speed while incoming fire sparked off nearby walls. We were cut off from extraction. For miles from the safe house. 60-plus hostiles between us and survival. Sarah clicked to the next slide, a tactical map. I made a command decision. Told the team to proceed to primary extraction while I took Michael through the urban area. You abandoned your team? General Patterson asked. I sent my team on the route with highest survival probability, while I took the wounded through the route with highest casualty probability. Command decision. My responsibility. The next footage was from a drone. Infrared, showing a lone figure carrying another through narrow alleys while multiple heat signatures pursued. For miles. 211 pounds between Michael and his gear. Ambient temperature 117 degrees. Engaged 12 hostiles en route. Sarah's voice remained emotionless. Michael's heart stopped twice. Performed CPR while under sniper fire. Brennan was staring at the screen, tears running down his weathered face. The report said, they said a teammate saved him. Never said who. Because I requested it remain classified, Sarah explained. Your son's a good operator, Colonel. But he had issues with female authority. Took him 6 months to accept that a woman had saved his life. Another 6 to admit I was a better soldier than him. She clicked to another photo, her in full combat gear with Team 6, faces blacked out except hers. 3 deployments, 47 operations, 16 confirmed kills, 23 lives saved under fire. But according to your presentation, I'm physically incapable of being here. How? Admiral Jackson demanded. The physical standards. I exceeded them, Sarah said simply. BUD/S Class 298 had an 82% attrition rate. I finished 3rd in the class. Pool comp. Honor man twice, fastest O-course time. She pulled up official records. 6'4", 220-pound men quit while I continued. Not because I'm stronger, because I'm harder to break. The room remained silent as Sarah continued her presentation, replacing Brennan's theoretical data with operational reality. You want to know how a woman survives Hell Week? She asked. The same way men do, by refusing to quit. Hour 72. Hypothermic, hallucinating, I watched men twice my size ring that bell. I stayed because quitting wasn't harder than what I'd already survived. What could be harder than Hell Week? General Morrison challenged. Sarah's expression darkened. Being a female Marine in Fallujah, 2008. Watching your squad get hit by an IED and being told you can't join the QRF because women aren't in combat. Identifying your friends by their dental records because you weren't allowed on the mission that killed them. She pulled up her service record. Force Recon, 2009 to 2016. Technically a cultural support team member. Reality? I was kicking doors and shooting bad guys like everyone else, just without recognition. When Project Valkyrie recruited me, I'd already been in more firefights than half the BUD/S instructors. Secretary Crawford interjected. Sarah was selected from a pool of 200 female special operations candidates. Olympic athletes, Marines, Rangers. She was the only one who made it through the entire pipeline. The pipeline was hell, Sarah admitted. Not just the physical, that was manageable. It was doing it all while hiding my gender. Strapping down my chest for pool comp. Never showering with others. Explaining menstrual blood as hemorrhoids. Living every second as someone else. She showed a photo from BUD/S. Her head shaved, face covered in sand, indistinguishable from the male candidates around her. The instructors who knew, all three of them, pushed me harder. If the men did 50 push-ups, I did 70. If they carried one boat, I carried 1.5. Not for equality, for dominance. To remove any question about whether I belonged. But why the secrecy? Admiral Jackson asked. If you succeeded, because one woman's success doesn't change systemic reality, Sarah replied. If I'd been public, every evolution would have been scrutinized. Every mistake attributed to gender. Every success diminished as lowered standards. I needed to prove it could be done without asterisks. Brennan finally spoke, his voice hoarse. In the footage, when you carried Michael, you engaged 12 hostiles. Sarah nodded, pulling up the full combat footage. The helmet cam showed her perspective. Michael's unconscious weight on her shoulders in a fireman's carry, her rifle engaging targets one-handed. ISIS fighters, mostly foreign. Chechens, Saudis, some Europeans. They thought one person carrying wounded would be easy prey. The footage showed her dropping Michael behind cover, engaging 2 fighters who'd gotten too close, then immediately resuming the carry. They were wrong. One segment showed her cornered in an alley, Michael propped against a wall. For fighters advancing, Sarah pulled Michael's sidearm along with her own, engaging with both hands simultaneously, a technique that should have been impossible with accuracy, yet all 4 fighters dropped. How? General Patterson asked, genuinely amazed. My father, Sarah said quietly, Chinese military, before he defected, taught me to shoot ambidextrously from age 6. Said America would give me opportunities China never would, but I'd have to be twice as good to get half the credit. She showed another clip, her performing field surgery on Michael while under fire, using one hand to maintain pressure on his wound while using her rifle with the other to suppress enemy positions. This isn't human, someone muttered. No, Sarah corrected. This is training combined with necessity. Every SEAL could do this if required. Gender is irrelevant when failure means death. Secretary Crawford pulled up additional files. Sarah's operational record speaks for itself. Operation Neptune's Spear, she was in the security element. Operation Kayla Mueller, she led the breach team. The hostage rescue in Nigeria last year that saved 4 Americans. That was her plan, her execution. The Nigeria operation. Admiral Jackson's eyes widened. The after-action report said the team leader engaged 17 hostiles in close quarters. That was you. Sarah nodded. The hostages included 2 children. The youngest reminded me of my daughter. You have a daughter? Brennan asked, surprised. 6 years old. Born between deployments 2 and 3. Her father's also Team 6. Sarah smiled slightly. He was in my BUD/S class. Took him 3 years to realize Sam Chun was a woman. Another year to work up the courage to ask me out. Master Chief Peterson, Crawford revealed, currently training new operators at Dam Neck. Sarah showed a family photo, Her, a bearded seal, and a young girl at the beach. Emma thinks Mommy and Daddy are consultants who travel for work. She'll learn the truth when she's older. Brennan stared at the photo. Michael never mentioned. He never said who saved him. I asked him not to, Sarah explained. He was struggling enough with losing his legs. Adding saved by a woman to his recovery seemed cruel. We agreed he'd tell people when he was ready. She pulled up recent messages on her phone. He texted me yesterday. Knew I was briefing today. She read, Ghost, Dad's going to lose his mind when he finds out. $20, says he cries. Tell him I'm proud to have served under you. P.S. The new candidates are soft. We're getting old. Brennan did cry then, not bothering to hide it. Why reveal yourself now? Admiral Jackson asked. After 7 years of secrecy, Crawford answered. Because the military is considering opening SEAL training to women officially. The opposition argues it's impossible, standards will drop, units will fail. Sarah's existence proves otherwise. I'm not here as propaganda, Sarah clarified. Most women can't do this job. Most men can't either. That's why the attrition rate is 80%. But the few women who can deserve a chance to try. The physical differences, General Morrison began, are real, Sarah agreed. I'm not as strong as Master Chief Peterson. He benches 350. I max at 185. But warfare isn't powerlifting. It's problem-solving under pressure. It's endurance over power. It's finding ways to win when you're outmatched. She showed footage from a training exercise, her sparring with a SEAL twice her size. He had every physical advantage. She won by being faster, more flexible, using his strength against him. In Syria, we breached a door. The biggest SEAL in our team couldn't fit through a crucial window. I could. Saved 6 minutes on our timeline, which saved lives. She clicked through more examples. In Afghanistan, I infiltrated a compound dressed as a local woman. Gathered intel that prevented an ambush. My male teammates couldn't have done that. Different capabilities, same standards, she summarized. That's all I'm advocating. Colonel Brennan stood slowly, his bearing formal despite his emotional state. Lieutenant Commander Chun, I owe you an apology. Not just for today, but for every assumption I've made about female capabilities in combat. No apology needed, Colonel, Sarah replied. You were working with the data available. I'm simply providing new data. There's more to the story, Secretary Crawford interjected. Sarah, tell them about Pakistan. Sarah's expression tightened. That's still classified. Declassified as of this morning, specifically for this briefing. Sarah nodded slowly, pulling up a new set of files. 6 months after Syria. Michael was back on limited duty, working intelligence. He identified a high-value target in Pakistan, ISIS commander responsible for 3 beheadings of American journalists. The tactical map showed the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, one of the most dangerous regions on Earth. The target was attending his daughter's wedding. 3-day event, 500 guests, heavy security. Insertion was deemed impossible for a standard team. Sarah clicked to surveillance photos. Project Valkyrie proposed an alternative. The next slide showed Sarah in traditional Pakistani wedding attire, her face partially covered. I went in alone, posing as a distant cousin from Karachi. Spent 2 days gathering intel, confirming the target's presence, mapping the compound. Her voice was clinical, but tension showed in her posture. 67 armed guards, multiple escape routes, children present throughout. Jesus, someone whispered. The strike was scheduled for day 3. Drone, minimal collateral damage projected. But 12 hours before execution, intel changed. The target was leaving early, and worse, he had an American prisoner. The room tensed. CIA contractor, grabbed 2 weeks prior. Being held in the compound's basement. If we struck, he'd die. If we didn't, we'd lose the target, and the prisoner would be moved to an execution site. Brennan leaned forward. What did you do? I improvised. Sarah showed a hand-drawn map. Used my wedding guest access to poison the guard rotation's water supply. Nothing lethal, just severe gastric distress. As guards rushed to latrines, I accessed the basement. The next image was grainy, a cell phone photo of an emaciated American in chains. Contractor Thomas Webb, tortured, semi-conscious, unable to walk. Extraction plan assumed he'd be mobile. Sarah's jaw tightened. I had 17 minutes before the guards would recover. How did you get him out? Admiral Jackson asked. The same way I infiltrated tradition. In Pashtun culture, women are invisible. I dressed Webb in a burqa, told everyone he was my pregnant sister, too sick to stay for celebrations. She showed exit surveillance footage, her supporting a figure in blue fabric, walking slowly through crowds. The guards, too sick to care and too embarrassed to closely examine women. We walked out the front gate. She paused. The target was eliminated by drone strikes 6 hours later after we'd cleared the area. Crawford added, Webb's testimony credits Sarah with saving his life. He specifically requested she receive the Intelligence Star. Which I declined, Sarah said. Medals compromise operational security. General Patterson had been silent, studying the materials. Commander Chen, your record is extraordinary. But one woman's success doesn't validate changing entire programs. Agreed, Sarah said, surprising everyone. I'm not advocating for lowered standards or guaranteed outcomes. I'm advocating for opportunity based on capability, not chromosomes. She pulled up statistics. Currently, 18 women have attempted SEAL training under various pilot programs. All failed, but they failed the same way men fail, physically, mentally, or both. That's equality. You didn't fail, Morrison pointed out, because I was prepared differently. I had 5 years of combat experience before BUD/S. I knew what real warfare felt like. Most candidates, male or female, don't. They're attempting to become warriors without understanding war. She showed a proposal. Pre-selection program. Combat experience required. Minimum fitness, standards 20% above male requirements to account for biological differences. Psychological evaluation for stress tolerance. Small candidate pool. Maybe 5 women per year who'd qualify. That seems discriminatory, Admiral Jackson said. It's realistic. We're not trying to fill quotas. We're trying to find the statistical anomalies, women who can exceed male performance through training, determination, and intelligence. Brennan had been reading through Michael's messages on his phone. My son writes here that you saved his team 14 times in various operations, that you have the highest accuracy rate in Team 6, that operators specifically request you for high-risk missions. Your son exaggerates, Sarah deflected. No, Crawford corrected, pulling up performance reviews. He doesn't. Anonymous peer evaluations from Team 6. Ghost is the operator you want when everything goes wrong. Would trust Ghost with my life without hesitation. Best tactical mind in the teams. One review stood out. Ghost proves that being a SEAL isn't about what's between your legs, but what's between your ears and in your chest, brain and heart. Sarah seemed uncomfortable with the praise. I've had advantages. Smaller size for infiltration. Different perspective on tactics. Underestimation by enemies. These aren't superior qualities, just different tools. You killed 17 men in close quarters in Nigeria, Patterson reminded her. That's not about size. Sarah's expression darkened. The hostages included 2 children. The hostage-takers were planning to execute them on video. In that moment, I wasn't a woman or a SEAL. I was death incarnate, and nothing was going to stop me from bringing those kids home. She showed a photo, her with the rescued family at a classified location, faces blurred for security. Their mother sends me letters, calls me their guardian angel. She's wrong. Angels don't do what I did in that compound. The room fell silent at the weight in her voice. Brennan stood again. Commander Chen, I need to ask, will you train the first official female candidates? Sarah shook her head. No. They need to forge their own path, not follow mine. But I'll share one piece of advice. The moment you think being a woman matters, you've already failed. The ocean doesn't care about your gender. Bullets don't discriminate. The only question is whether you'll keep going when your body quits, your mind breaks, and everyone expects you to fail. Admiral Jackson had pulled up Sarah's full classified file. Purple Heart twice, Bronze Star with V device, Silver Star, Navy Cross recommendation pending. How are you not more decorated? Because medals require explanation, Sarah replied. Every award would prompt questions about operations that don't officially exist. Crawford stood. Which brings us to why we're really here. Sarah's agreed to go public. Full disclosure of her service, media interviews, congressional testimony. The first female SEAL will become official record. The death threats will be immediate, Morrison warned. They already are, Sarah said calmly. ISIS has a specific fatwa on me. The Taliban calls me, the ghost woman, and offers $3 million for my capture. Going public doesn't increase the risk. What about your daughter? Brennan asked, genuine concern in his voice. Sarah's composure cracked slightly. Emma's the hardest part. We've prepared for this. Security details, safe houses, new identities if necessary. But she deserves to know her mother's truth, even if it comes with danger. She showed one last photo, her in dress uniform, trident pin prominent, standing beside her daughter at a school presentation about heroes. Last month, Emma's class had Hero Day. Kids talked about firefighters, doctors, comics characters. Emma said her hero was her mom, who helps people when they're scared. She doesn't know the half of it. Yet, Brennan said softly. She will. Sarah nodded. When she's ready, I'll tell her everything. The good and the bad. The lives saved and the lives taken. The price of being first. Crawford concluded the briefing. Gentlemen, Sarah's revelation will cause controversy. Some will say we've lowered standards. Others will claim it's propaganda. The truth is simpler. She's proof that exceptional individuals exist regardless of gender. The question isn't whether women should be SEALs, but whether we'll recognize the ones who already are. Sarah stood to leave, then turned back. Colonel Brennan, your son asked me to give you this. She handed him a challenge coin, not standard military but custom. One side showed the SEAL trident, the other showed a ghost symbol with sometimes the strongest warriors are the ones you never see coming engraved around it. Michael had these made for everyone on the Syria mission, Sarah explained. He wanted you to have his. Brennan held the coin like a sacred relic. Thank you. For saving him. For proving me wrong. For being what I didn't think was possible. I didn't prove anything, Colonel, Sarah replied. I just refused to accept limitations others set for me. Any woman with enough determination could do the same. As she walked toward the door, General Patterson called out, Commander Chun, one last question. Do you regret it? The secrecy, the sacrifice, everything you've endured. Sarah turned, and for the first time, smiled genuinely. General, I've saved 43 lives in direct combat. I've eliminated threats that would have killed hundreds. I've proven that warriors don't have a gender requirement. Regret? No. But I do have one hope. What's that? That someday, a female SEAL won't be newsworthy. That it'll be so normal, so accepted, that my story becomes irrelevant. That's when we'll know we've truly succeeded. With that, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chun, call sign Ghost, the first female Navy SEAL, walked out of the Pentagon briefing room, leaving behind a group of military leaders whose worldview had just been shattered and rebuilt. Within hours, her story would break globally. Within days, she'd testify before Congress. Within weeks, the first official female SEAL candidates would begin training. But in that moment, walking through Pentagon corridors, Sarah thought only of her daughter Emma and how to explain that sometimes being an imposter is just another word for being impossible until you prove you're not. This is what shattering glass ceilings really looks like. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chun didn't just break barriers, she obliterated them. White heavy checkmark subscribe to hear more classified stories finally being told. Thumbs up, leave a like if you believe heroes come in all forms. Speech balloon comment. Did this story change your perspective? Bell, share this with someone who needs to know that impossible is just an opinion. The only easy day was yesterday, and even that was hell. Navy SEAL motto, proven by a woman they said couldn't exist. Coming next, more incredible true stories of those who refuse to accept no for an answer.